All right, let's talk hunting knives, both fixed and replaceable blades. In this video, I have asked over 1,000 members of the HuntLeague community to chime in and tell us their favorites. Now, I have almost 20 years of big game hunting experience, most of that out here in the West, and over the years, I've broken down everything from elk, deer, pigs, bears, coyotes, rabbits, turkeys, waterfowl, all while using a variety of blades. As you can see here, I have bought a ton of different knives over the years, and I've tried just about everything. I still have the very first knife that I used to field dress a deer out here. And at that time, I bet I paid $25 for this at Walmart, and I really thought it was great until I tried another knife. And that experience led me down this wild rabbit hole from replaceable blade knives to custom knives to gimmicky knives like this one that I probably would or should have avoided. Now, one thing I know is that every hunter needs a knife. It is an essential part of our gear in the field and at home. One great thing about knives is that there is one for every budget. In asking HuntLeague members about their go-to knife for big game, by far the number one response was the Outdoor Edge replaceable blade knife. That also happened to be the number one knife hunters mentioned failing on them in the field. So should you avoid it? Absolutely not. I actually bought another one just this week after hearing so many rave reviews from other HuntLeague members. Now, it's an amazing tool that you can often find for under $30 or at your local Walmart, Bi-Mart, or whatever store is near you. If you go that route, you may just want to have a backup plan though, just in case something goes wrong. So let's talk about what we're gonna cover today. Number one, general characteristics of a good hunting knife. Number two, should you use a fixed or replaceable blade knife? Number three, steel selection and what difference does it make? 4, ergonomics, how it fits in your hand and the shape of the blade. And 5, we will end with HuntLeague's top picks for both fixed and replaceable blade knives, including our top budget picks. Again, this isn't just my opinion. I asked members of the HuntLeague community to chime in and tell us what they like in a knife, what they have used in the past, and what they're using now. So let's take a look at some of the general characteristics of what to look for in a knife. Just a reminder, we are talking specifically about hunting knives, designed for breaking down big game animals in the field, not utility knives, EDC knives, taxidermy knives, or what you might use in the kitchen. Now, some of those knives certainly overlap and some can be dual purpose, but we really want to focus on knives that you would carry with you in your kill kit for breaking down an animal in the field. Now, we realize that meat care and taxidermy work have to be considered in the process. So these knives have to be able to perform everything from your fine cuts around the antlers, eyes, mouth, nose, and the fleshing, removing back straps and rib meat, slicing through tendons, getting between vertebrae and separating joints. That is a lot to ask of just one knife, especially if you're hoping to maintain an edge. So what should you be looking for in this do-all hunting knife? Well, let's start with the blade length. There are some clear advantages and disadvantages when it comes to blade length. For small, intricate cuts, a shorter knife and a small blade is certainly preferred. Just watch your local taxidermist and see what type of blade that they have on hand for their detail work. Oftentimes, they'll be using a surgical scalpel that's used by doctors or surgeons, or something very small in the 2 to 3 inch range. Now, the disadvantage of such a tiny blade is that you only have so much blade length to work with, making it tougher for your bigger jobs and often dulling the blade much quicker. Now, larger blades are great for retaining an edge with a longer cutting surface, but you lose that dexterity on finer cuts, and a larger blade may be a good idea for some of your larger animals, such as a moose or elk, but they can be a bit cumbersome on even some of your smaller big game animals, such as a deer or pronghorn, or even some of your smaller predators. So if you're looking for one knife to do it all, the general consensus would be to land somewhere near a 3-inch blade. Anything from maybe 2 3/4 to 3 1/4 seems to kind of be in that sweet spot. So blade length seemed to be one of the easiest features to find consensus on inside the HuntLeague community. But what were some of the other things that were mentioned? Well, when it comes to sharpening the edge of the blade, the preferred blade angles were between 17 and 20 degrees. The preferred weight was an interesting topic to discuss, but preferences there often came down to the type of hunting and distances from a vehicle. For the ultralight backpack hunters, they preferred finding knives in the 1.5 to 3 ounce range, ultra light. However, I don't think they were always accounting for the sheaths or the extra blades that they may have to take with them that all add up to the total weight. Now, we also had guys that loved their heavy duty, sturdy, stable knives, but they admitted that they don't always carry them with them, but they prefer using those when they get an animal back to the vehicle or the house. We also found more people lean towards replaceable blade knives than they did a fixed blade option. The number one reason for that was not wanting to carry a sharpener or not feeling confident in sharpening their knife in the field. Most hunters that used a replaceable blade knife also carried some sort of fixed blade option as a backup, but most hunters that preferred a fixed blade did not carry a backup replaceable blade knife, which I found interesting. Now, edge retention and toughness became more important to those that carried only one knife, with many of them saying they also carried some kind of a work sharp tool that they would bring with them in the field to hone their blade. Now, work sharp was by far the most commonly used tool, both at home and in the field, to hone or keep a blade performing at its best. Let's talk replaceable blade knives. This is not a new concept, but one that I think has really been perfected over the past 10 years. The first time I ever used a replaceable blade knife was back in 2012 when I was given a custom case knife to commemorate a special trip to Alaska. Now, when I say a replaceable blade knife, this is probably not the style nor blade design that comes to mind, as Havalon and Outdoor Edge have really exploded in the hunting market with their replaceable blade knives over the last several years. Havalon's parent company had been providing scalpel blades to doctors, surgeons, and even taxidermists for years, but around 2005, they started building replaceable blade knives for hunters that used somewhat universally accepted number 60, number 70 surgical blades. Since that time, many other companies have put their own spin on that design, with some accepting the same universal blade, while others have engineered their own custom blade shape that is specific to their lineup. Now, that is important to pay attention to, as you shouldn't assume that any replaceable blade knife will just automatically fit any knife that you buy. As I mentioned earlier, more HuntLeague users are now using replaceable blade knives than traditional fixed blade knives in the field. It's not by a large margin, but I was a little surprised by that finding. The clear advantages is always having a sharp blade at the ready, but what are some of the disadvantages? Safety in the field is a big one. With a replaceable blade knife, you are often handling the blades to get them in and out of the knife handle. You may have bloody, slippery, or sticky hands, and you may be operating the function of changing out blades with freezing or tired hands, which limits dexterity and fine motor movements, increasing your risk. Now, I just recently recorded a podcast with Lucas Paw, professional outfitter and guide, a hunting fool advisor, and one of the developers of Hogue Hunting's new knives. I would encourage you to check out their new Expel folding knife, as it removes the need for you to have to touch the blade when swapping them out in the field. If everything goes perfect, you can probably get through one large animal on a single blade, but you may find the blade losing its edge and needing to go through more than one blade on a single animal. I went through 4 blades on a single elk, breaking off 3 of them inside the elk while breaking it down. That means you're picking up smaller pieces of blade that have broken off inside the animal, and sometimes losing those pieces inside the meat itself. Oftentimes, your new replaceable blade knives, they'll come with a small case to store extra blades. It doesn't always come with an extra case, though, for you to store or discard your old blades. Do you really want to store your clean blades with your dirty blades? Now, I don't think it's responsible to leave or just bury your old blades there in the woods. So be sure to have a plan to properly dispose of your old blades when you take one of these knives with you in the field. Now, one last thing I want to point out, I really like how Outdoor Edge and Coast have a sleeve that goes over the top of the blade, adding significant strength to the system and allowing you to put your index finger on top of the blade, which can sometimes offer a little more control as you make cuts. You're also less likely to break these blades if you induce a twisting motion with the cut. That will often snap your number 60 surgical steel blades that are only designed to cut in one direction without any twisting or lateral movement. The potential downside of this sleeve is it is easy to get gunk in the slot, which can make changing or even replacing the blade more difficult. Now, I have that same complaint about all folding knives too. They're harder to clean and it is easy to get all kinds of junk stuck inside them. So what system would I recommend? A fixed or replaceable blade? To be honest, my answer is both. But if I had to choose one and only one, my choice would still be to carry a high quality fixed blade knife. No matter what replaceable blade knife system you choose, there are mechanical parts that all must work together to keep the blade secure. Those are all tiny potential fail points, even though all of these knives that I mentioned have been engineered to perform under pressure. Also, in my opinion, you are more likely to cut yourself with a replaceable blade knife, and as light as they are, you still have to bring extra blades and a case to store those blades and the used blades in, taking away some of that weight-saving advantage. With a fixed blade knife, you should still probably carry a small sharpener, which does add a few ounces as well, but this video is not really about what system is the lightest to carry. As a backcountry hunter, I have found there are certain places that make sense to carry a little extra weight. I would rather carry a heavier sleeping pad and get a better night's sleep than carry an ultralight setup. I would say the same with my kill kit. I would rather shave ounces on my game bags and carry an extra knife or two. So unless I'm hard pressed against some kind of weight limit restriction, my plan would always be to pack a fixed blade along with the replaceable blade system, a sharpener, and the extra blades, with the goal to keep the whole overall weight of my knife system in that 8 to 15 ounce range. All right, let's jump to steel selection, as this has potential to be a hot topic. I spent a few years in college taking engineering courses and learned a lot about building materials, chemistry, and steel. To be honest, I've forgotten most of it, and I wouldn't consider myself a metallurgist, but this is where Google searches and turning to experts like Dr. Laren Thomas come in handy. If you are looking to take a deep dive here, I would encourage you to pick up Laren Thomas's book called Knife Engineering, where he breaks down different types of steel and their unique properties. Whether you're looking at a classic 440 stainless, a D2, an A2, an M4, a 154 CM, S35 VN, the important factors to consider are corrosion resistance, hardness, blade retention, and toughness. It is also important to note that not all steel is created equal. It can have the same name. It can be a 440, but how it is heat treated and machined can make a difference on the quality and how well it retains an edge and how easy it is to sharpen. Some hunters immediately jump to the conclusion that they want the hardest or toughest steel possible. Sure, that might retain an initial edge better, but they can be significantly harder to hone or sharpen in the field or even when you're at home. Now, if you were to ask most of your wild game processors, they often prefer working with a cheaper steel that is super easy to hone and sharpen over a super hard steel. If you plan to clean your knives after use and you don't mind coating them with a little mineral oil in storage, you may really like the qualities of an A2, a D2, or an M4 steel that have excellent edge retention but not as much corrosion resistance. If you have no idea what steel to look for and you don't really care to do the research, you may just consider MagnaCut. It's a relatively new steel developed by Dr. Laren Thomas. MagnaCut is to knives what the 6.5 caliber is to rifles. It is the latest, greatest with all the buzz because it does just about everything pretty well, although it's not necessarily the best in any one specific category. So here's what I know and appreciate as a hunter. if I buy a quality fixed blade knife from a company like Hogue Hunting, Montana Knife Company, Benchmade, it comes with free sharpening for life. The steel is so nice on these types of knives that you can typically get through more than one big game animal before the blade even needs to be touched up. With a cheap knife with softer steel, I just have to stay on top of the blade more and use a ceramic rod, a piece of leather, or a diamond plate to keep it going. An example of this would be this kit from Outdoor Edge. This is a fantastic setup that I don't use in the field, but anytime I can get an animal back to the house, it is my go-to kit. It has multiple knives and blade shapes for addressing different cuts, but every few minutes you have to touch up the blade. That's not a problem when I'm at home dressing out an animal on a table, but I don't like it near as much when I'm in the field. This is where a superior steel or a replaceable blade knife really shine. For me, I'm gonna take something like this Attleboro knife, a Hogue Hunting knife, or this Benchmade knife with me, knowing that I can get through a few animals in a single season with minimal upkeep on the blade. With this Hogue Hunting extract, I'll just plan to send it back to the factory and get it factory resharpened every year so that I know it will be ready for the next adventure. Now let's talk about the ergonomics and shape of a knife. There are going to be some blade shapes that universally just work better for different tasks. For fleshing and removing a hide, I really like having a pronounced curve in the blade. Then for something like removing a backstrap or removing the rib meat, a longer, more flexible blade knife is definitely preferred. Now we found that there seemed to be a sweet spot for the blade length, but when it comes to the handle size and the shape, that really starts to become unique to the person holding the knife. Some hunters I know love using a scalpel-like blade for the entire animal, something really small and thin, and they're just going in and making tiny cuts. Personally, I find my hands cramp and they get super tired grabbing a little tiny handle. Now, there are little things that knife manufacturers do to add jimping and shape to sections of the knife where they can still take an ultra low profile knife and make it more comfortable in your hand. Now, if I had to pick between using this Coast knife and this Gerber Vital, I would choose the Coast knife every time because of the ergonomics. The handle is much more substantial and it just fits way better in my hand. Now, that is not universal, as many of you might prefer working with this smaller handle design. Beyond just the size of the handle, the width and the materials used start to play an important factor. I really seem to like knives that offer a little more of a rubber type grip over a cold metal or a paracord wrap. Then you have popular materials like your G10 and micarta that are extremely durable, lightweight, and hard. If the surface of both is smooth, I prefer a micarta grip over the G10 when wet or bloody. I prefer the G10 though over the micarta on surfaces that have a little bit of texture kind of machined into them. Now, when it comes to rubber grips offering a non-slip surface, I have found they are not always consistent. Sometimes they can be really grippy, and other times that rubber surface can feel pretty slick. That can actually be with the very same knife, but I think it has to do with the temperatures and other factors. What else is on the handle? Is there blood, water, sweat, fat, etc.? Let's continue to talk about the handle and the shape, not just the length and width of the handle. I've had a few experiences where my hands really started to hurt after gripping the same blade for a long period of time. I looked at some alternative grips that I thought might help with that. And here are a few examples of knives that I have tried just to help with that hand fatigue. Now, I mentioned carrying more than one knife to the field, and I have found that by switching between knives throughout the process, it has really helped me with that hand fatigue as it changes your grip on the knife. Now, this may be beyond just carrying a fixed blade and a replaceable blade knife, but a different shape of knife altogether. For the most part, a knife like this, these are somewhat helpful for a short period of time, but I much prefer a more traditional grip as I found that I don't have the same level of control over the blade when holding it like this. There are a few scenarios though, where I could see carrying a blade like this with me, but for the most part, these knives, they're staying at home. Now, this Gerber knife was the first hunting knife I ever purchased. I did my first deer with it and it did a subpar job. I just didn't realize how soft the steel was and how quickly it would lose its edge. If I just would have brought something like this little sharpener, it would have made all the difference in the world. After that first deer, I looked online for other knife solutions, which brought me to this bad boy here. I watched a video on it and thought this is a perfect solution for hunting, as this knife does it all. That is when marketing and a lack of real world experience really swayed my opinion. Now, I'm not saying this knife can't get the job done or do it all, but when it comes to ergonomics and the shape of the blade, I can say I have learned a few things since this purchase, and I wouldn't really recommend this as the knife to add to your kill kit. I say that because I really hope this video is informative in helping you select a knife that will really work best for you in the field. With that said, let's look at HuntLeague's top picks for both fixed blade and replaceable blade knives. We'll give you our top 5, knowing that each knife will fit your hand a little different and may serve a slightly different purpose. We'll mention knives at different price points, but also give you at least one budget-friendly pick for both fixed and replaceable blade knives. We'll list them in descending order from the most expensive to the least expensive and put a spending cap of $250 on our fixed blade and $150 on our replaceable blade knives. So let's start with the fixed blades. And the first knife is this Attleboro Caribou Skinner, which comes in at the top of the budget right at $250. Now, this is a custom knife made up in Idaho. It is on the larger size when it comes to blade length, the blade handle, and weight. This thing with the sheath weighs just at 10 ounces. The knife itself weighs 5.5 ounces, has about a 4-inch blade on it. It is bigger. It's excellent though when it comes to tackling your big game animals such as moose or elk. It offers excellent edge retention and corrosion resistance with a 154 cm steel. This is the knife that I have had on me over the past year on my elk and bear hunts. This is an heirloom quality knife that comes with a leather sheath, offering your more classic and traditional look. Up next is the Argali Seric knife at $239. You can get this knife in their backcountry field kit for $268 right now, which includes a set of Argali's super high quality game bags. Now, Cody Parator won this knife as part of the On Point experience with Garrett Weaver, Huxworks, Vortex Optics, and Colby from Bear Hunting Magazine. He started that trip off using that knife to can bear meat with Wild Food Outdoors, and then later got to use it for the first time in the field when he harvested his first bear. He went on from that trip and ended up harvesting a pronghorn, a whitetail in Wyoming, a blacktail in Oregon, and 3 turkeys this past spring, and he has used that knife for everything. He used to carry a replaceable blade knife, but he stopped carrying that, and now he only carries this Argali knife. It has that 3-inch blade, which falls right in the perfect sweet spot. It's made of S35VN, which is arguably one of the best steels on the market for any type of hunting knife. Check out that Argali Seric knife. It is absolutely fantastic. Definitely one of our top picks. Another top choice is the Iron Will K1, which comes in at $209.95. The blade on that is made of a super hard A2 tool steel. Now, that does require a little bit more upkeep because it is not as corrosion resistant as some of the other steels, but it is super hard. I would order the black ceramic coated one because that will help prevent corrosion. But you will still want to make sure to keep that blade clean and oiled, especially on the edge, to prevent any corrosion. The blade is a little bit on the shorter side at 2.85 inches, but in the hands of a surgeon, it will completely break down the biggest of animals and probably more than one of them with minimal honing. Now, Iron Will sets the standard when it comes to broadheads in the archery industry, and they have brought some of that experience when it comes to blade material and shape into hunting knives with this ultra sleek K1 knife. Up next, we have the Hogue Hunting Extract knife. Now, I saw this knife for the first time at SHOT Show and instantly fell in love. You can get it in either a coated M4 steel or in Magna Cut. The knife weighs 1.9 ounces with the G10 scales that can be removed to even save more weight. You can learn more about this specific knife in the Hunt League podcast that I just recorded with Lucas Paw. I personally love this knife and I can't wait to put it to the test this fall. If you're an archery elk hunter, I want to encourage you to jump inside the Hunt League mobile app and join the sweet September League, where one hunter is going to be crowned the league champion and they will win a custom engraved hog hunting extract knife. You can get this knife with a 3.3 inch blade, or you can pick the XL model, which has a very similar profile, but a 3.9 inch blade. This knife comes in at just under $200 at $199.95. Now, when it comes to selecting a budget fixed blade, there are a few options that we really like. The Kershaw brace knife comes in under $40 and has a great feel, but the 2-inch blade is a little bit limiting and it's not going to be up for all the tasks. The Gerber Exo Mod, it hits the blade sweet spot at 3 inches, and you can find this inexpensive made in China knife on sale, often for under $20. But like my first inexpensive Gerber, plan to bring a sharpener. I also don't necessarily love how hard the rubberized kind of plastic feel on the handle is, but it's still a great knife for under 20 bucks. Another one that I really like is the Buck 631 Packlight, which is a skeletonized knife with a slightly longer 4-inch blade. For smaller hands, we really like the Swiss Tech knife that you can pick up at Walmart for under $35. This is a D2 steel, which should outperform mostly other knives in this budget category, and it comes with a 2.75 inch blade with a nice curved profile. With all of that said, when it comes to budget friendly, it is hard to beat anything from Outdoor Edge. The Jaeger pair combo for under $30 is tough to beat, even when going up against far more expensive knives. The Field Zipper knife is a modern take on a gut hook where you can make your first incision and then just run the blade up under the hide with the blunt tip on bottom, and you won't puncture the guts using this blade for those type of cuts, which will help preserve the edge on your main blade. Now, is it fair to pick a knife set as our top budget pick? Probably not, but this kit weighs just over 8 ounces and is an excellent choice for hunters, and that is why the Jaeger pair comes in as our #1 pick for a fixed blade knife in the budget category. All right, let's switch over to the replaceable blade category and give you our top picks. The reason why more and more hunters are switching over to them is their cost and ease of use in the field. Even some of the more well-designed replaceable blade knives, they would fit as a top budget pick inside our fixed blade category. And similar to the fixed blade category, we're going to put a price cap of $150 on our top picks, which barely pushes the Taito Hollow Bone out of the running, which is an ultralight favorite for many of the hunters inside our community. With that said, the Goat Capra Hunter comes in at $134.99, making it the most expensive replaceable blade knife in our top 5. But several hunters inside the Hunt League community absolutely love this knife. The knife handle, without the blade or any of the bit attachment, weighs in under 1 ounce at just 26 grams. So believe it when somebody says that you won't even feel it in your pack. Now, hunters like how the Goat integrated a functional multi-tool by allowing hunters to carry 2 bits inside the handle, which can be an absolute lifesaver if you ever need to tighten up your scope rings or your bow sight out in the backcountry. Another reason why so many people love the Goat Capra Hunter is it uses your standard number 60, 70, or 22 surgical blades, which are inexpensive and readily available. Now, the downside for me with this knife is the way that you have to attach and remove the blades themselves. Just watch the commercial from Goat Knives on YouTube, which shows a hunter pushing the blade off with just their tip of their finger and then securing a new blade. It's a simple enough process, and I'm not saying it is a design flaw. Goat created an absolute bomb-proof ultralight option for the ounce counting hunter. There's always going to be some level of risk though when handling sharp knives or razor blades. It's just so easy to cut yourself after a long, hard day, especially when you get lazy and sloppy with a knife while breaking down an animal. Should you avoid the goat? Absolutely not. It is a top pick for what it is, but be careful when you're swapping out those blades. All right, that leads us to our next pick, which is the Hogue Hunting XPEL folder. What makes this a top pick? Well, the team at Hogue Hunting recognized the added risk that hunters have when swapping out blades in the field, and they created a replaceable blade system that doesn't require the hunter to even touch the blade. Again, you can learn more about this specific knife in the recent podcast that I did with Lucas Paw from Hogue Hunting, one of the designers of the knife itself. The XPEL folder, it's available at hoguehunting.com for $124.95, or you can buy the non-folding XPEL scalpel for $10 less at $114.95. Both offer a safer and more reliable way to swap out the blades, which is huge for hunters in the field. The XPEL knives also offer excellent ergonomics and they feel incredible in your hand. Speaking of feeling great in the hand, up next we have the Coast Shift knife. Originally this was a top budget pick as it sells on the Coast Portland website for $29.99, which comes with 5 blades, the carrying case, and the plastic box that stores the blades. This knife was recently on sale for under $20 on their website, which is an insane price for such a high quality replaceable blade knife system. Now this package comes set up with 2 drop point blades, 2 utility knife blades, and a gut hook. The Coast knives are not compatible with your traditional surgical scalpel blades like the Tyto, the Goat, and the Hogue Hunting knives, but they are compatible with your standard utility knife blades, which might work for guys carrying it as an everyday carry option. Now, the Coast blades, they are thicker. They're less likely to snap on you, and they can even be sharpened in the field. I love the spine on this knife, which holds the blade securely in place, adds strength to the blade, and it lets you place your finger along the top of the knife safely. There are also some great safety features built into this knife, and I think you're going to be a lot less likely to cut yourself because of the size and shape of these blades. All right, up next we have the #1 knife used by members of the HuntLeague community. It is the Outdoor Edge Razor EDC or Razor Pro. You can choose whether you want this in a 3-inch or 3.5-inch blade. Personally, I like the 3-inch option, but both of these knives are absolutely money. They are readily accessible and they can generally be found for about $30 to $50 depending on the number of blades that you select or whether it comes with a case or other type of blade attached. They have several different models, so take a look at their website before you make your selection. The Outdoor Edge blades are razor sharp, but they don't always come with a plastic case for storing blades, so you may need to have a plan for that depending on which model you purchase. Although their blades are also proprietary, they are a little easier to come by than the Coast blades, as just about every sporting goods store carries them in stock. Now, we did have several HuntLeague users experience some form of failure in the field with these knives. Again, that is going to be a lot more common with your replaceable blade knives and your folding knives because they contain small mechanical parts. Hunters are using these knives in harsh conditions, which is why most hunters that carry a replaceable blade knife system as their primary knife also carry a fixed blade. That leads us to our top budget pick in the replaceable blade category. It is the Randy Newberg EBS knife from Gerber. Although it retails at gerbergear.com for $68, which is more than the other ones, it can be found on Amazon right now for under $40. This Randy Newberg knife feels and functions like a quality fixed blade. It comes with 3 different blades that are all super functional for breaking down big game animals. It's almost like Randy actually knows what he's doing when it comes to designing knives. Now, this is probably the only replaceable blade knife that I would feel confident using as a standalone knife in the backcountry on a hunt. As I said before, I like to carry at least 2 knives, and typically I'll always bring one replaceable blade knife, and a fixed blade knife in my kill kit. The Randy Newberg EBS knife wins our top budget pick, not because it is the cheapest replaceable blade knife, but because it provides what I believe is the best value and the most complete system. I love the way this knife feels in my hand. The serrated blade is unique and it's not commonly found in most of your replaceable blade knife systems or even in your kill kits. And the longer blade on this knife is perfect for making deep cuts and removing back straps on game like elk, moose, bison, and even deer. I want to thank you for taking time to watch this video. I hope it's helpful for you when it comes to deciding what type of knife you want to purchase and take with you in the field. For me personally, I plan to carry the Hogue Hunting Extract Fixed Blade and the Randy Newberg EBS knife with me on my archery elk hunts this fall. Then for the later season rifle hunts, I'll move to the Attleboro knife and the Coast Shift knife, possibly even this custom knife that I was given as a gift. I find that in sub-freezing temps, I do a little bit better with a larger knife that has a little bit more weight and a more substantial grip. When I get back to the house though, the Outdoor Edge processing kit comes out and it helps me finish the job. Also, in case you're wondering, I was not paid to promote or mention any of these knives here. You'll be able to find some of them inside the HuntLeague app as partners in our leagues, as we have partnered with some amazing people and companies that want to support you. This video was put together with tons of input from hunters inside the HuntLeague community. Now, HuntLeague is a mobile app that works as a digital hunting journal, allowing you to capture and share the story of your hunt. The app has a built-in leaderboard that tracks your progress throughout the season and allows you to connect and compete with other hunters in leagues, such as the Outdoorsman of the Year, the Western Hunter, Spring Turkey, the Apex Predator, the Wild Food League, or our Sweet September Archery Elk League. Check out those leagues inside the HuntLeague app where companies like Vortex Optics, Sequence Precision, Spot Hog, Tacticam, Stag Arms, Burris Optics, Hogue Hunting, Remington, Coast, Outdoor Edge, Bergara, Arkin, Alps Outdoors, and so many others have partnered with us to bring the league winners some incredible prize packages. Now, if we didn't mention your favorite like Benchmade or MKC knife, don't be offended. We absolutely love those knives, and they did come up often within the HuntLeague community as favorites, along with several other custom knife makers that do incredible work. In the process of getting feedback from the community, one of my favorite knife stories, it came from Dale Baresh out of Texas, who said that he's been using the same Knives of Alaska kit for 18 years and has never felt the need to upgrade and change to something new. So it's not always about the latest and greatest, but we do want to help you find what will work best for you, and hopefully it works for you for a long time to come. Again, every hunter needs a quality knife, and best of luck to you as you make the decision on your next hunting knife.